who do you think's the sleeper of this year's class on offense? Who's going to be the guy that's going to come in and surprise?
Well, I think that might be on the offensive line because you're always looking for good depth on that offensive line.
Absolutely.
Last year, for me, the sleeper really was Ryan Freeman from Orem. He came in, they had to use him because of some injuries, and he was very effective as a pulling guard out of that offense. And he was a guy at Orem High that was pretty good, but no one expected him to contribute really this year. I think you got the kid from Texas, and I need some help with his name here. Manaki Vaitai, is that how you say it?
You got it.
From Euless, Texas, Trinity High School, a very powerful program out there. He's a guy that could come in and provide some depth to that offensive line. It's not a real impact sort of thing, but they do need depth so they can scrimmage and so they can have some rest some guys if they need it. I also like Houston Reynolds coming in, maybe learning the center position and giving him some good future there. But on the offense, they've got some pretty good guys waiting in the wings that were with the program this year that'll step up and take those positions. So I don't see a lot of real impact players on offense other than the guys we've already discussed. But they do need depth on that line, and that's a place where Vaitai and Reynolds can make a difference.
Sure.
Do you have any other sleepers?
Yeah, my sleeper is a local kid, a kid named Jordan Smith. This is a kid, 6'5", came to BYU's camp. And we always get guys that tell us they run 4.5s, 4.4s. Everyone's a 4.4 guy.
I'm a 4.4 guy.
They get to camp, they run 4.6, 4.7.
In your car, right?
Yeah, right.
Anyway, this kid came to camp and he ran a 4.5, 340 at 6'5". I mean, just blew everyone away. And very agile receiver for his size. I think he's a real sleeper. I think he's a guy that could really come on. A local kid from Spanish Fork.
Absolutely.
Tell anybody else you think of?
You know, these guys covered it. I mean, wide receivers. I mean, BYU strong. I mean, every recruit they come in, they're really. It's really difficult to say. Well, this kid here could be a sleeper. This kid here could be an impact player because they could all basically fit that mold. Honestly, if you're talking about on a national level, in regards to being a sleeper, obviously he would. Jordan Smith would be one because he didn't really get a lot of national publicity. Of course, we know a lot about him. We know what he can do. We've seen what he can do. But yeah, I mean, how do you argue that? There's a kid that didn't get.
It's one of those camp phenoms.
I also think
absolutely.
as BYU gets this recruiting process going, the cycling through of the recruits that go on missions and come back, there might be less and less opportunities for these freshmen to step in right away because they're bringing guys back off missions, giving them a year to get back, and then that next year they're ready to go. Right now there are some holes that they can fill with some of these freshman recruits, but as the process gets going, the way Bronco Mendenhall wants to do it, there may be less and less of those spots open. They may have to wait their time,
Yeah, absolutely.
Red shirt, go on a mission, come back, go through the process.
Yeah, and he mentioned also that Manaki Vaitai. It's funny because he's a kid that BYU offered early. He committed on the day BYU's blue and white game, and it's interesting because then Urban Meyer from Florida kind of creeps in and says, "Hey, how solid are you?" Texas, same way. Manaki's coming to BYU.
Good for him. Now that's exciting for BYU fans to hear. Now, Talo, you started talking earlier about defense, so let's turn to the defensive side of the ball. Who's going to be the big overall impact guy on defense?
Gosh, I mean, how do you? It's so difficult because if you look at it, okay, let's see what's going to happen. Okay, BYU might lose three or four guys either to graduation for the past defensive line, and also on missions. Romney Fungo will probably go on a mission as well as Indian will obviously come back, but Hala Paongo's gone, and I believe that Temana Paongo has decided to move on. But there's a good case that somebody who in this class could come in and get some playing time. I like Ethan Manu Maliun, local boy out of here at Tentview High School. He wasn't rated the best defensive tackle in the country by the scouts, but he was. He had completely dominated Simi Philly, who committed to Oregon when Tentview played Cottonwood High School. And no offense to Simi, I love the kid, great kid, but I would have to say Ethan Manu Maliuna is probably the best defensive tackle in state. Defensive end, Starlo Tulele out of Bingham High School, 5A state championship. I mean, how do you keep a guy that had 2 sacks in the East versus West bowl game down in Florida? I mean, he's another kid that come in and get some immediate playing time. So I would say defensive line, there's a good chance that would happen. And of course, we talked a little bit about G. I mean, how do you say a cornerback? Top 10 defensive back recruit out of California. I think you can see him possibly in the rotation.
And you can look and see at that defensive backfield for BYU. Ben Criddle, if he's healthy, he's got surgery on the toe a few months ago. He should be okay to go in the fall. But that other defensive back spot is open at cornerback. And you're looking at Brandon Bradley was a guy they were high on but got injured. So he's going to have an opportunity. And some of these young guys like G can come in and maybe make an impact. And as we talked about before the show, Jaime Hill, terrific pickup for BYU as a coach. Made a huge difference in that defensive backfield and taught some guys who looked lost in 2005 how to be good defensive backs in 2006. So if you play well and you listen to Jaime Hill, you know, you're going to grow up and be a good cornerback, and that's what they're looking at.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about impact guys already, so I'm going to jump right to the sleeper. Who's the sleeper on defense? Who's the guy that's going to come in that nobody knows about and end up being a real good player for BYU?
My sleeper is Stephen Thomas. This is a kid that did everything for his high school for 3 years. Quarterback gets injured, he plays quarterback. Receiver gets injured, he plays receiver. Defensive back, very good instincts. Been playing football since he was 9 years old. Very top-level California team, and he was their player. You ask who he reminds me of, I'd have to say Eric Weddle. He's a kid that just does everything for his football team, extremely good. Probably not the best athlete, but a very good athlete, but very, very good instincts, and I think he's going to be a safety that Cougar fans are going to become very familiar with.
Anybody else jump out as sleepers to you guys?
Kanye Kuafrio, man of God. That's what his name means in Hawaii. Basically, he's a
man of God.
Man of God.
Could he go to anywhere but BYU, right?
I mean,
his dad made him cut his hair before he came to BYU's camp.
And he did it. He cut his hair, and BYU saw how athletic. He's a 6'5", he's a 6'5", 220-pound guy. You know, I mean, his athleticism, his speed, his quickness. He's a kid that basically got no recruiting attention from any other publication anywhere. Yeah. Basically, just, I mean, he's a kid that's just going to come in, and when he came in, his vertical leap, his shuttle, his 40 time, a kid's a freak. He could play defensive end, he could play linebacker, he could play tight end, he could play any position. He's another kid that not a lot of people know about, but when they see him, they go, wow, where did this kid come from? Well, he came from the islands.
Yeah. Real quick, my guy, Tyler Beck. Durietta, California.
Very good pick.
Linebacker.
Very good pick.
BYU has a great tradition of good linebackers. Here's a guy that's about 6'1", about 205, 210, put on 15 or 20 pounds, and he's going to join that great list of great linebackers. Had over 90 tackles his senior year.
Absolutely.
Well, it's an exciting time for BYU fans, both on offense, looking at both the offense and defense as they look at this recruiting class. But we're going to be right back after this break to talk about the local kids and what they're going to do at BYU.